This is Nitin Dahad with EE Times, and I'm here with Peter Clarke, who's a freelance journalist and the curator of the Silicon 100 list. Hello, Peter.
Hello, Nitin.
So this year you'll find us at the Oxford Centre for Innovation. That's just because we're invited here to look at some of the companies coming up, but it's actually quite indicative of some of the companies on the list over the last couple of years, which is around AI and quantum. And quantum is a big thing here in Oxford and Bristol, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, it's quite appropriate that we should come to Oxford to conduct the interview. Oxford is a big quantum city, and quantum is coming up on the Silicon 100. It continues to increase in significance.
Okay, now this is Silicon 100. It's the 20th year, starting in 2004. So 24th edition, that's because we had a few in between. What's the highlights of this year, the 24th edition?
Well, it's kind of more of the same. It's AI and more AI and a little bit more quantum. There's no doubt about it. Just as in the broader world, AI is the hot topic. It is an industry-changing trend that venture capitalists are very keen to invest in.
Okay. AI is a big topic. I mean, we're talking specifically about hardware play, aren't we?
Yeah, when we compose the Silicon 100, we do tend to take a hardware-centric point of view. We're looking to write for engineers that read EE Times and similar publications. So we're not so much interested in technology companies that are just looking to do a service play to end users. So yeah, we tend to always have one foot in the hardware camp. But increasingly, these startups are hardware, firmware, and they're also software.
But in the report, I mean, you talk about AI, but AI is quite broad. I mean, are there any sort of specific areas that you think we focus on in Silicon 100?
Yeah, I mean, you're quite right. AI is broad, and we're starting to see some activity at the edge. Obviously, 95% of the market is in servers, and it's dominated by a big company, NVIDIA. But we're starting to see activity at the edge. We're seeing a lot of startup activity trying to fit into NVIDIA's ecosystem, doing things which are related to AI. But I would say one of the biggest trends is around sustainability. The complexity of the models used in AI is increasing exponentially. The number of applications is increasing exponentially. The number of use cases, I mean, Microsoft Copilot and so on, it's becoming exponentially used more, and this means that the power consumption is going through the roof. And it seems clear that those exponential trends cannot continue. We don't have very much to talk about on that front this year, except for there is one company we've highlighted in the Silicon 100. It's called Literal Labs.
Yes.
They are a UK company, and they're looking to get round the power consumption by using a different algorithmic approach to AI and machine learning.
Yeah, and there's such an approach. I think it's quite interesting, and you should have a read of that in the Silicon 100. Peter's done quite a good write-up as well. But in terms of that energy, I think I've been hearing people like Mark Papermaster say for like the last 3 years in his keynotes, we're using more energy than we can, we're going to be using more energy than we have. But is that trend of using more AI, is it just going to more efficiency, more, are we seeing a lot more companies try to do things more efficiently and things like that?
Well, they would say so, I'm sure, but shaving 10% here, 20% there really is not what this sustainability issue requires. So yes, there's work on analog compute in memory, and all these things make a difference. I think it's going to take quite possibly some radical changes, whether it's from Literal Labs or from other AI companies, remains to be seen.
Okay. Let's turn it. I mean, one of the things in your list is the regional split as well as the technology split. And I think we've already emphasized that, technology is so cross-functional that, you can't really sort of categorize anymore. Is there anything you want to say on that? Otherwise, we'll talk about, the regional.
Well, I would just like to say we've seen some increased activity, and it's reflected in the Silicon 100 in the fundamental materials activity. We've brought additional companies on in the Silicon 100 in AI at the edge, and also one or two additional companies have come on in quantum, and that tends to exclude the middle, the analog, the mixed signal, the MEMS, the RF, and displays and activities like this. They're still there, but they're perhaps just a few less companies than there were in the previous edition.
Okay, and what about regions then? Now that's a big thing. I mean, it used to be Silicon Valley, California, but now in this year's list, North America, collectively, US and Canada has sort of risen, but California slightly down. Yeah. But then also the other aspect is, and we're not going into the geopolitics here, but because of all the things going on, the number of companies from China has gone down as well.
It has. I think there's a couple of trends there. I think Silicon Valley was the first model for the venture capital industry to create startups. Very often they were like acorns falling from parent companies. And when we started 20 years ago, it was very obviously dominated by Silicon Valley. There are a couple of trends going on. On the one hand, clearly other regions and countries are starting to want to participate in a similar way and having some success, and companies are arising in these places. Also, against that, those companies sometimes want to be in Silicon Valley. They want to at least have their C-level suite there because it's where all the other C-level executives are, and it's a sort of high street of the industry. But so over the 20 years, Silicon Valley and the United States have reduced gradually in significance, while other regions have come up. This year, that trend ended, or at least paused. Europe has always been good at creating startups in Israel, in UK, increasingly now in France and Germany and Belgium. But what they do tend to struggle with is the scale-up investment. And that still tends to be the US and China. They're the regions that find $100 million, multi-$100 million plays to get their promising startups into real significant places in the industry. And I think that remains the case. But Europe is very well represented this year. We wait to see if things are different this time around.
And we're not seeing from a lot of these others competing with China now in Asia. Are we seeing anything significant there, or not really yet?
Not really. It seems that for whatever reason, cultural or otherwise, places like Japan, Taiwan, I mean, they all produce startups, but they are fewer and less than we see in other regions. I mean, India it has promised for a number of years, and it is starting to produce some interesting startups, but very often they are split between India and Silicon Valley, and they eventually reassign their headquarters and they become a US company.
Exactly. What's the thing that you think is bubbling under the horizon for next year? I mean, what do you see coming up? Can we give us some clues?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think more AI. I think edge AI still has to start having an impact, and we're starting to talk about smartphones with AI on board, PCs, AI PCs, or Microsoft Copilot PCs. We're starting to see AI being pushed to the edge because that can save power. So I think in the next year or two, we're going to start to see a little bit more edge traction, and that will be interesting.
I love that phrase, edge traction. That's good. And Peter, what's the key takeaway from this year then for you? AI and quantum, I guess.
AI is going upwards and to the right from an already high base. It is an industry-changing trend, but it is also this exponential growth which goes with being an industry-changing trend or a society-changing trend is not sustainable. There has to be some major changes in energy consumption or of trimming sparsification of data or of new algorithmic approaches that will allow us to do the same sorts of things that people are now becoming comfortable with: image generation, text generation. People want to do that, but they're going to have to do it at a lot lower power consumption.
Well, Peter, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.